Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive
Yeah,
into the magical world of Harry Potter.
always fun.
Right. So today, I thought we would take a look at the dynamic between Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Yeah,
Um,
the golden trio.
yeah, they're often called the Golden Trio.
Yeah,
But our mission today, I think, is to go beyond those kind of
Yeah.
simple labels
yeah,
and really try to unpack what makes them tick as a group.
yeah.
How do their personalities and their
How
skills.
should they blend together?
I think we can learn a lot from looking at that for sure.
Yeah, and I think, it's not just as simple as Harry being the brave one, Ron being the loyal one, and Hermione being the smart one.
Right.
Right. It's really about,
It's how those things interact.
how they interact.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
That create a balance.
Let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Let's start with a really prime example of Harry's bravery.
Sure.
In Order of the Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
when he casts a Patronus to save Dudley from the Dementors, even though he's underage,
Uh-huh.
and he risks expulsion.
Yeah.
That's not just like textbook courage, right?
I mean, this is really interesting because I think one of the things that we see so often with Harry is that his bravery
Yeah.
is very impulsive. It's very much driven by this need to protect
Yeah.
the people that he cares about.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't really hesitate to put himself in harm's way,
Right.
especially when it comes to his friends.
And it makes me think about his past
Yeah.
a little bit too.
Right. Absolutely.
Like he's been facing danger
yeah.
since he was a baby.
I mean, literally since he was an infant.
Literally since he was a baby.
Yeah.
Losing his parents to Voldemort and then, enduring a decade of neglect at the Dursleys.
Exactly. I mean, his childhood experiences really shaped, I think, his instincts.
Yeah.
And so he's almost programmed, I would say, to confront threats head on,
Yeah.
even if it means being reckless sometimes.
Yeah. And that recklessness, I think, sometimes gets him in trouble,
For sure.
like in Goblet of Fire
Right.
with the Triwizard Tournament.
Absolutely.
But it's also what makes him the hero.
Right. It's that willingness to charge in.
Yeah.
And never back down
Never back down.
from a challenge.
Yeah. And I think his courage isn't just about, like, his own actions.
Right.
It kind of has, like, a ripple effect
Oh, for sure.
on the people around him.
Yeah. It inspires others.
It inspires Ron and Hermione to be brave,
Yeah. Even when
they're afraid.
Yeah, they're terrified.
Yeah.
But they see him facing down, giants and Dementors and Voldemort himself.
Right.
And it pushes them to kind of
Yeah.
overcome their own fears.
So Harry's bravery is like this spark that kind of ignites the trio into action.
That catalyst.
Yeah.
For sure.
So let's shift gears to Ron now.
Okay.
He might not always be in the spotlight, but his loyalty, I think, is really like the glue that holds this group together.
Absolutely. I think his loyalty is unwavering.
Yeah.
And, we see it right from the very beginning.
Right from the beginning.
In Sorcerer's Stone, when he stands up to Malfoy for Harry.
Yeah.
And, he's just met Harry.
Yeah.
It's not like they've been friends for years.
Just met him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that moment, I think, really establishes.
Yeah. It shows us who Ron is right away.
Like his friendship isn't based on Harry's fame or his magical abilities.
Right?
It's just about this genuine connection.
Yeah, a real connection between them.
And I think it's interesting to contrast that with his family dynamic.
Yes.
Ron is surrounded by
all these overachieving brothers.
Yeah, he's constantly being compared to
He's
them.
constantly being compared.
And yet he chooses to stand by Harry, his less than perfect friend.
Well, I think that's a key insight into Ron's loyalty is that he values that genuine connection more than accolades or recognition.
Absolutely.
And I think he provides something really crucial for Harry, which is that emotional grounding.
Yes.
He injects humor.
Yes,
and
a dose of reality.
a dose of reality into these often intense adventures that they have.
He reminds Harry that he's not just the boy who lived,
right?
But he's also like a normal teenager.
A normal kid who needs to laugh sometimes and have a break from saving the world.
Exactly. And that unwavering support, I think, is such a lifeline for Harry.
Yeah.
It reminds him that he's not alone.
Right. He's got someone who always has his back.
He's got people who have his back.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Hermione.
Okay.
She's often labeled as, the brightest witch of her age.
Right.
But I think her intelligence is so much more
Oh, yeah.
than just book smarts,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's her resourcefulness and her
Yes.
ability to think on her feet,
Exactly.
to plan, and to problem solve.
She's the one who consistently pulls them out of all the tight spots.
Yeah.
Whether it's figuring out the potions riddle
Right.
or researching the basilisk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's brilliant.
She's the one who figures it out.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
And I think her Muggle upbringing
Yes.
plays a role here too.
Absolutely.
Because it gives her this really unique perspective
Yeah.
on the wizarding world.
She's not afraid to challenge
Right.
the norms.
She can question
the
magical norm
the way things have always been done.
and find creative solutions.
And exactly.
Yeah, and while she sometimes struggles
Yeah.
to understand emotions,
Right.
which sometimes leads to clashes with Ron,
Of course.
it's also through those conflicts
Yeah.
that she learns and grows.
She grows and learns.
So we see how Harry's bravery inspires action.
Right.
Ron's loyalty provides this like constant anchor,
Yeah.
and Hermione's intelligence guides their choices.
Guides their choice.
But what's truly remarkable
Yeah.
is how these individual strengths
Yes.
combine
into this powerful force.
into this powerful force.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting.
This is where it gets good.
Let's look at some specific instances where their combined strengths like really shine through.
Yeah.
Take Prisoner of Azkaban,
Oh.
for example.
Mm-hmm.
Hermione's research helps them understand
Yeah.
the truth about Sirius Black.
Right.
Ron provides emotional support during that terrifying shrieking shack incident,
Right.
and Harry's bravery allows him to actually confront Sirius and finally learn what really happened that night.
That's a great example, I think, of how their skills complement each other.
Yeah.
And, I don't think any one of them could have navigated that situation alone.
No.
You've got Hermione's logic uncovering the facts.
Yeah.
You've got Ron's empathy providing the emotional support that Harry needs.
Yeah.
And you've got Harry's courage that drives them to confront the threat.
And in that same book,
Mm-hmm.
Ron's Quidditch skills
Right.
help Gryffindor win the House Cup.
Yeah.
It's a seemingly small victory,
Yeah.
but it gives Harry, I think, a much-needed confidence boost after a really tough year.
Yeah, and I think that shows us that, even though Ron's strength isn't in academics or, magic in the same way,
Right.
that everyone has something
Yeah.
to contribute to the group.
Right.
And it's important to celebrate each other's strengths no matter
Yes.
how diverse they might be.
And who can forget Hermione's initiative in forming Dumbledore's army,
Right.
in Order of the Phoenix?
Yeah,
I mean, that showcases
totally.
her leadership and her ability to empower others.
Yeah. I mean, at a time when they're being oppressed by Umbridge,
Yes.
she creates a space for resistance
Yes.
and community.
Right.
And she understands that knowledge is power. And so she's equipping her fellow students with the skills that they need to defend themselves.
It's not just about fighting spells. It's
Yeah.
about fighting for what's right.
For their freedom, for their right to learn and protect themselves.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting point, I think.
Yeah.
Which is that their individual growth really mirrors their deepening trust and understanding of each other.
Of each other, yes. And
it's not always smooth sailing?
it's not always easy, right?
No, not at all.
They have their fair share of conflicts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like Ron walking out on Harry
yes.
in Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
And Hermione's frustration with Harry's recklessness in Order of the Phoenix.
Right. Those conflicts are crucial, though.
They are.
I think, to their development as individuals, but also as a group.
Yeah.
Because they expose their vulnerabilities.
Right.
They force them to confront their own flaws and biases.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they lead, I think, to stronger communication and deeper empathy.
And they learn to apologize.
Yes.
To forgive, to
Yeah.
see things from each other's perspective.
Exactly. And each time they reconcile, I think their bond becomes even more resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their friendship is like forged.
It's forged in the fires of adversity.
Yeah.
They become more than friends. They become a surrogate family for each other.
Yeah. They choose each other.
Yes.
Even when, blood ties disappoint or fail them.
Exactly.
Now, something I've always wondered about is how their individual backgrounds play into their dynamic.
Yeah.
We've talked about Harry's traumatic upbringing.
You're right.
But how do Ron's experiences in a large, boisterous family
Yeah.
and Hermione's perspective as a Muggle-born witch
Right.
influence their interactions?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, I think with Ron coming from a large family, he's always craved recognition and belonging.
Yeah.
He's often overshadowed by his talented brothers.
Right.
And so I think that might explain why he's so sensitive to feeling left out or overlooked.
Like in Goblet of Fire,
Exactly.
when he gets jealous of Harry.
Yeah, his jealousy, I think, is partly fueled by that need for validation.
Yeah.
But his loyalty to Harry, I think, ultimately trumps those insecurities.
Yeah.
And he realizes that, true friendship isn't about competition.
Right.
It's about support and understanding.
And his humor,
Yeah.
which I think is often seen as like comic relief,
Right.
is actually, I think, a really powerful coping mechanism.
Yeah. It allows him to diffuse tension,
Right.
lighten the mood,
Yeah.
and remind everyone, including himself, that even in the darkest times, there's still room for laughter.
He brings a sense of normalcy
Yeah.
to their very extraordinary lives.
Exactly.
Now, Hermione's experiences as a muggle-born witch
Yeah.
are particularly interesting.
Uh-huh.
She faces prejudice and discrimination
Yeah.
in the wizarding world.
She does.
Something that Harry, with his fame, is somewhat shielded from.
Right. I mean, she's called a mudblood,
Right.
which is a derogatory term.
Yes.
And she constantly has to prove her worth in a society that often undervalues her
Right.
because of her non-magical heritage.
Yes, and this shapes, I think,
It does.
her fierce independence
Yeah.
and her drive to excel.
It gives her a critical lens as well.
Yes.
I think.
Yes, she's able to see
Yeah.
the flaws and the hypocrisies of wizarding world in a way that I think Harry and Ron,
Yeah.
who grew up immersed in its culture,
Right.
sometimes miss.
They don't see it
They don't see
the
it.
same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's not afraid to challenge
No.
those injustices.
Nope.
We see this in her passion
Yeah.
for house elf rights.
Right.
She recognizes the inherent inequality
Yeah.
in the treatment of magical creatures,
Uh-huh.
and she speaks out against it.
She did.
Even when her friends
Yeah.
don't initially understand her position,
Right.
it's like her outsider status
Yeah.
allows her to see things
From a fresh perspective.
from a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
And she doesn't shy away from pushing her friends
Right.
to confront their own biases.
Yeah. And they, in turn, I think, help her to navigate the social complexities of the wizarding world, which can be quite daunting for someone who wasn't raised in it.
Yes.
And they provide her with a sense of belonging and acceptance
Yeah.
that she wouldn't have found otherwise.
It's this beautiful cycle of support.
It is.
They each have their blind spots, their
Yeah.
vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
but they're able to help each other
Yes.
see things more clearly,
To grow as individuals
grow as individuals,
and to be more effective as a team.
and to be more effective as a team. And this
Yeah.
is what makes their story so powerful.
Yes.
It's not just about defeating a dark wizard.
right.
It's about the transformative power of friendship,
Yeah.
about how love and loyalty can overcome prejudice and adversity.
It's about choosing each other even when it's hard.
Yeah,
And I think that's something that really resonates with people.
it does. It's interesting. One of the things that always kind of struck me about the Harry Potter series
Yeah.
is how J.K. Rowling
Mm-hmm.
makes the concept of love
Right.
more than just like a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a literal magical force.
It really is. I mean, from Harry's mother's sacrifice,
Yes.
protecting him from Voldemort,
Yes.
to Snape's, complex, lifelong love for Lily.
Yeah.
Love is woven into,
The fabric of the story.
the fabric of the story, the magic system itself.
And it's not just romantic love.
Yeah.
It's the love between friends.
Right.
The loyalty within a family, the sense of belonging
Yes.
to a community.
To a community, exactly.
All these things contribute to what Dumbledore calls like the light side of magic.
A light.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we see this reflected in how the trio interacts with each other.
Yes.
I mean, their love for each other isn't just a source of comfort. It's a
Right.
source of strength.
Yeah.
It empowers them to face challenges that I think would break other people.
Think about Ron in Sorcerer's Stone,
Yeah,
willingly sacrificing himself during that chess game
right.
to let Harry and Hermione move forward.
I mean, that's not just strategy. That's love in action.
Love in action.
Yeah.
And Hermione in Prisoner of Azkaban,
Oh.
punching Draco Malfoy in the face to defend Hagrid.
Right. She's usually all about rules,
Yes.
but love for her friends makes her break them.
And of course, there's Harry,
Yeah.
constantly putting himself in harm's way for the people that he cares about.
It's almost instinctual for him
Yeah,
at this point.
it is.
I think.
And his selflessness
Yeah.
is a superpower
It's a superpower.
in this world.
Yeah.
And it's fueled.
And it's fueled by the love and loyalty that he receives from Ron and Hermione.
It makes their friendship more than just like shared adventures and
Yes.
fun times.
It's a lifeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a source of magic
It is.
in and of itself.
They create this feedback loop of positive energy.
Yes.
I think every act of love,
Yeah.
every display of loyalty strengthens their bond
Yeah.
and in a way amplifies their magical power.
It makes me think about Dumbledore's line, love is the only protection that has any power against Voldemort.
Right.
At first glance, it just seems like a really sentimental quote.
Yeah.
But it's actually like a key insight into how magic works.
It's the core of their defense against dark magic.
Yes.
I mean, the trio's love for each other and the love that they inspire in others is what ultimately shields them from Voldemort's hatred and fear.
It's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
You have this kid, Harry,
Right.
who's grown up unloved, abused,
Right.
facing, the embodiment of hatred.
Yeah.
And what does Dumbledore give him?
Yeah.
Not just magical training,
Right.
but friends.
And gives him love.
He gives them love. And that's the brilliance.
I think that is the brilliance of the story.
What's the story?
Is that the solution to darkness isn't more power.
Right.
It's connection, belonging, love.
Love.
And I think that message resonates
It does.
with readers no matter.
On a deep level.
Yeah, on a really deep level.
And that message is constantly being reinforced, I think, through the trio's interactions with other characters.
Yeah, they don't just fight evil.
Yeah.
They spread kindness wherever they go.
They befriend the outcasts like Luna Lovegood.
Right.
They stand up for the downtrodden creatures like the house elves.
Yes.
They even show compassion to their enemies.
Yeah. I mean, think about Harry's interactions with Dobby.
Yes.
He treats him with respect, even though Dobby is just a house elf.
Right.
And that ultimately leads to Dobby sacrificing himself to save Harry.
It's such a powerful example of how even small acts of love can have huge consequences.
It's enormous consequences.
In this world.
Yeah. It highlights how the battle against darkness is about more than just wands and spells. It's about how we treat each other.
Right.
The choices that we make.
The choices we make every day.
Every single day.
And the trio's choices consistently reflect their values.
They choose love over hate.
Yes.
Loyalty over betrayal. Courage over fear.
And their choices have this ripple effect.
Yeah.
They inspire other people to make similar choices.
Right. Right. To stand up for what's right.
To stand up for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
To believe that a better world is possible.
It's like the snowball effect.
It is.
Of goodness spreading outward.
And it's that belief, I think,
Yeah.
in the power of good and the power of love
Yes.
that ultimately sustains them through the darkest moments
Absolutely.
of the series.
Yeah. Their friendship is like a light in the darkness.
It is.
A reminder that even when things seem hopeless, there's always something worth fighting for.
Always something worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on and on.
We talk about this forever.
We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Analyzing, all these examples of bravery and loyalty and intelligence. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the most crucial takeaway.
I think the most important thing is what would happen if we all brought a little bit of Harry, Ron, and Hermione's magic into our own lives.
It sounds simple.
It does.
But think about it.
What if we approached our own challenges
with their courage? With their courage. What if we treated our loved ones with their loyalty?
With their unwavering loyalty.
What if we used our intelligence?
Yes.
Whatever form it takes.
Whatever form it takes.
To solve problems and make the world a little bit brighter.
To make the world a better place.
We don't have to be wizards to do that.
We don't.
Yeah.
Their story gives us a blueprint.
Yeah.
A reminder that the magic of friendship, love, and hope can exist.
It can.
Yeah.
In our world, too. All right, so you've challenged us with a pretty interesting deep dive this time.
Yeah.
To trace how Ron Weasley goes from sidekick to, a true hero.
Yeah.
And we've got all 7 Harry Potter books to help us, kind of map out that journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are going to be surprised by how much depth there is to Ron's character.
Yeah, it's interesting, because when you look at his path to heroism, it doesn't really start out with him bursting onto the scene, as this, fully formed hero. He really stumbles along the way and makes mistakes. And I think there's even times when he's, kind of frustrating. But That's what makes him so compelling, right? He's relatable. He feels real.
Yeah, totally. It makes his heroic moments hit even harder because it's not just some preordained destiny. Like, he has to work for it.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about that legendary chess match in Sorcerer's Stone for a second? I mean, talk about bravery and strategic thinking. Talk about a masterclass.
Yeah, you're right to bring that up. I think it's a scene that often gets overlooked because, everyone's so excited about the final confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort. But that chess game, I think, really reveals so much about who Ron is, even at, like, such a young age. He's not just the funny friend, there for comic relief. He's capable of analyzing a complex situation. He's, making difficult decisions and even sacrificing himself for the greater good.
It's like he knows, even then, that he's playing a supporting role. He's not the chosen one, but he's totally vital to Harry's success. And he'll do whatever it takes, even if it means getting knocked unconscious by a giant stone knight.
Exactly. And what's interesting, too, is he doesn't just, like, charge into danger. He's actually thinking, several steps ahead. He understands, the strategy of the game, the importance of each piece. He's willing to make the tough calls. You could say that it's almost like foreshadowing his leadership skills that we see develop later on in the series.
Right. And it also makes that whole, like, always the bridesmaid, never the bride thing a little more poignant, don't you think? He's constantly in the shadow of somebody else's greatness.
Yeah.
Whether it's Harry or, one of his older brothers.
Right.
I think that feeds into a lot of his insecurities, which I think we start to see more of in, like, Chamber of Secrets.
Absolutely. Chamber of Secrets, I think, really peels back the layers of his personality and starts to reveal, there's a deep well of vulnerability there, especially when it comes to his family and his own magical abilities. He's constantly being compared to his brothers who all seem to excel in some way,
Right.
And he just feels like he's lagging behind.
And his spider phobia. Intense.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I get it. Spiders are creepy. But his terror, it's on another level. And it comes from a pretty messed up childhood prank, courtesy of Fred and George.
Yeah, turning your little brother's teddy bear into a giant spider. I mean, that's some next-level psychological warfare. It really speaks to the, complicated dynamics of the Weasley family. But I think it also adds, this layer of understanding to Ron's anxieties.
And it's not just some random fear. It almost stops him from going into the Forbidden Forest with Harry.
Yeah.
Think about that. He is terrified, but he still goes because he knows Harry needs him. That says something about his loyalty and his courage.
Yeah, it's a great example of how, Ron's bravery isn't about the absence of fear. It's the ability to push through it when it really matters.
Yeah.
He's not fearless. He's courageous. And I think there's a difference.
Absolutely. And then Prisoner of Azkaban literally forces him to face his worst nightmare. That boggart turning into a giant spider.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating about that scene is how he actually deals with it. Professor Lupin doesn't, like, force him to do, some big act of bravery or whatever.
Right.
He actually teaches him to use humor to disarm that fear. And it works.
Yeah.
Ron pictures the spider wearing roller skates, and suddenly the terror is gone.
Such a Ron move.
It's kind of
Like using humor as a shield.
Yeah.
A way to deflect from his anxieties. And it works.
It does.
It's a reminder that sometimes laughter is the most powerful weapon against our own inner demons.
Exactly. It's a coping mechanism, and I think a healthy one at that, He learns to kind of laugh at his fears, which in a way gives him power over them. And that's a skill that comes in handy throughout his journey, because he faces some pretty dark stuff. But he always manages to find that little bit of light, the little bit of humor to keep himself going.
It makes me think about the whole hero's journey thing.
Yeah.
It's not always about physical strength or magical powers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about mental resilience, being able to find humor in the face of darkness.
I completely agree. And, I think that's something we see even more so in Deathly Hallows when Ron is confronted with the Locket Horcrux.
Oh, man, that locket. Talk about preying on insecurities. It throws all of his deepest fears and doubts back at him.
Yeah.
Amplified to the point where he almost breaks.
It's a brutal test, even for somebody as resilient as Ron. Because the locket shows him, visions of his worst nightmares. Harry and Hermione together, his family rejecting him.
Yeah.
His own worthlessness magnified like 1,000-fold is basically everything he's ever been afraid of, all wrapped up in this, dark magic.
And it almost destroys him. He actually abandons Harry and Hermione.
Yeah.
Which is heartbreaking. To see him struggling with such intense self-doubt is just hard to watch.
Yeah. But what's even more important is that he comes back. He fights his way through the darkness. He literally breaks free from the Horcrux's hold and he returns to his friends. That, to me, is the moment when he really steps into his own as a hero.
Because it's not about never having doubts or never making mistakes. It's about recognizing those flaws, confronting them, and then choosing to do what's right even when it's really hard.
Exactly. And destroying the locket, that's not just about getting rid of, a piece of Voldemort's soul. It's about Ron actually conquering his own inner demons. Wow. He literally stabs the thing that's feeding on his insecurities. It's a symbol of his personal growth and his, commitment to the fight against evil.
It's like he's finally proving to himself and to everybody else that he's worthy.
Yeah.
That he can be the hero he was always meant to be. I think that sets the stage for his incredible role in the Battle of Hogwarts.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's a story for another time, maybe. We've covered a lot with Ron's journey already.
Yeah.
And I think his leadership in the final battle deserves its own spotlight.
I agree. I think the Battle of Hogwarts is really where we see all of his growth and all of his struggles and all of his triumphs come together in this spectacular display of heroism.
Yeah.
I think the Battle of Hogwarts is really where we see Ron, at his best. It's like everything he's learned and every challenge he's overcome, it's all led to this moment. You know, he's not just fighting alongside Harry. He's a leader in his own right.
Yeah, he's not hiding in the shadows anymore. He's giving orders and strategizing and, even cracking jokes to keep morale up.
Yeah.
He's finally comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
And that confidence really translates into some impressive actions. Remember when they need to get into the Chamber of Secrets to destroy the Basilisk Fang?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great example of his quick thinking and, resourcefulness. Who knew that his childhood habit of mimicking Harry's parcel tongue would actually come in handy during a life or death battle?
Right. It's a brilliant moment.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to that idea that even our most insignificant experiences can shape us in really profound ways. Ron probably thought he was just messing around, but that, playful imitation actually gave him a vital skill that helped them destroy another Horcrux.
Right. And, it's not just about his ability to speak parcel tongue. During the battle, he demonstrates a real deep understanding of strategy and tactics. He's always thinking several steps ahead, anticipating the enemy's moves, and coming up with these creative solutions to problems that seem impossible.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to challenge authority when it matters.
Yeah.
Remember when he argues with Kingsley Shacklebolt about evacuating the house elves?
Oh, yeah.
He insists that they should be given the choice to fight because he recognizes their strength and courage.
It's a great moment that shows his empathy and his understanding of equality. He's not just fighting for wizards. He's fighting for everyone who believes in, fighting against Voldemort, regardless of, their species or their social standing.
It's interesting because for so long, he struggles with his own insecurities.
Yeah.
Feeling overshadowed by his brothers and his famous best friend. But in the Battle of Hogwarts, it's like he's not trying to prove anything to anybody anymore.
Yeah.
He's just doing what he believes is right. And that kind of selflessness, I think, is truly heroic.
Absolutely. And it's not just, about those grand moments of heroism. Ron's also there for the smaller, quieter acts of courage. He's the one who's constantly reminding Harry and Hermione to take care of themselves, to eat something, to get some rest. He understands that even the strongest warriors need to recharge.
He's like the heart of the trio.
Totally.
Grounding them, reminding them of their humanity amidst all the chaos and destruction. It's easy to get swept up in the fight, but Ron never loses sight of the human cost of war. He understands that they're not just fighting a battle, they're fighting to protect the people they love, the world they cherish.
Exactly. And speaking of protecting the people he loves, let's not forget his fierce loyalty to his family. When the Death Eaters attack the Burrow, he's so protective of his parents and his siblings.
Yeah.
Putting himself in harm's way to defend them.
That scene is so intense.
Oh, my God.
You see how much he loves his family and his willingness to fight for them no matter what? It's a powerful reminder that heroism isn't always about defeating some, big bad enemy. Sometimes it's about protecting the people who matter most to you.
Yeah. And, it's not just his family. Remember when he urges Harry to spare Draco Malfoy's life during the battle? It would have been so easy for Ron to just give in to anger and seek revenge for, all the pain that Malfoy caused them over the years.
Yeah.
But he chooses compassion instead.
He reminds Harry that they're fighting for a better world, a world where people don't resort to violence and hatred. It's a moment that really shows us Ron's moral compass.
Yeah.
His understanding that true victory is choosing mercy over vengeance.
Yeah, it's a really powerful lesson and one that I think resonates deeply with the overall theme of the books. The importance of choosing love over fear, compassion over hatred,
Right.
and hope over despair.
And it's a choice that Ron embodies throughout the entire battle. He faces unimaginable danger. He experiences tremendous loss.
Yeah.
And he sees acts of just unspeakable cruelty. But he never loses sight of his values, his belief in the power of good to triumph over evil.
And it's that unwavering commitment to his values, I think, that makes him such an inspiring hero. He's not perfect. He makes mistakes, but he never gives up on his friends, his family, or his belief in a better world.
It's amazing when you think about it, how far Ron's come,
Yeah.
From that insecure kid on the Hogwarts Express
Yeah.
to the brave warrior we see in the Battle of Hogwarts. His journey really is like a testament to personal growth and the impact of supportive relationships.
I think, it's important to remember that Ron's growth wasn't, like a solo mission or whatever.
Right.
He was surrounded by people who believed in him and challenged him and ultimately, helped him become the best version of himself.
His family was huge. I mean, the Weasleys are like a force of nature.
Oh, totally.
They're loving and they're loyal and they're not afraid to stand up for what they believe in, even if it means going against the grain.
Yeah, Arthur and Molly, despite having 7 children
I know.
and not a ton of money, let's be honest, they still created this environment of warmth and acceptance. They instilled in their kids, this really strong sense of justice and a willingness to fight for what's right, even when it's dangerous.
And each of Ron's siblings, in their own way, I think served as a kind of role model for him.
Yeah.
You've got Bill with his adventurous spirit, Charlie, with his passion for magical creatures. Percy, well, maybe not the best example.
Yeah.
But even his, ambition and rule following had its moments.
Right. And then the twins,
Oh, yeah.
Fred and George, with their rebellious streak and their knack for finding humor in even the darkest of times, they influenced Ron's sense of humor and his willingness to challenge authority.
Totally. They showed him it's okay to question the way things are and, poke fun at the absurdity of the world and fight for change,
Yeah.
even if it means breaking a few rules along the way.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's Harry, the boy who lived the chosen one. Ron could easily been intimidated by, Harry's fame and his destiny.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But instead, he chose to stand by his friend and to support him and even to challenge him when necessary.
Their friendship is honestly one of the most compelling things in the whole series.
It is.
They bicker and they compete.
Oh, yeah.
They even have that major falling out. But at the end of the day, their bond is unbreakable.
It really is. And they complement each other so well.
They do.
Harry's courage and his determination inspire Ron to be braver. And then Ron's loyalty and his humor, that grounds Harry.
Yeah.
Reminds him of the importance of, human connection.
And we can't forget Hermione,
Oh, of course not.
the brilliant witch who completes the trio.
Yeah, she's like the voice of reason
Yeah.
and the strategist.
Yeah.
And, her friendship with Ron is just as important as his bond with Harry.
Totally.
She really pushes him intellectually and challenges his assumptions and helps him see the world in new ways.
Together, they create this powerhouse dynamic, each of them bringing their own strengths.
Yeah.
Supporting each other through good times and bad, and ultimately showing that friendship can conquer even the darkest magic.
I think that's the biggest lesson we can take away from Ron's journey. He shows us that heroism isn't about being perfect or having, some great destiny or whatever. It's about the choices we make, the people we choose to surround ourselves with, and having the courage to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's scary.
It's about embracing our flaws, learning from our mistakes, and never giving up on the people we love.
Yeah. Ron Weasley may have started as the sidekick, but in the end, he shows us that he's a hero in his own right.
He really does.
And his story is a reminder that I think all of us have that potential for greatness.
Yeah.
Just waiting to be, unleashed.
On that note, we'll leave you with this thought. How have the relationships in your life shaped you?
That's a good one.
Who are the people who have challenged you to grow and supported you through tough times?
Yeah.
Helped you become who you are today? Take a minute to appreciate those connections, because they are really the most magical part of our human experience. Today we're going on a little journey into the world of Harry Potter.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and we're going to explore a question that's been brewing in your mind. Is Hermione Granger ever underestimated? Particularly, when it comes to her bravery. You've given us quite a stack of books to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Excerpts from all 7, actually, so we've got plenty to examine.
Well, it's fascinating because we have a character here whose intellect is undeniable, like right from the moment she steps onto the Hogwarts Express.
Yeah.
But the question is, how does that early perception, especially that know-it-all label, impact how others see her when it comes to courage,
Exactly. And you want to know if those perceptions ever shift.
Right, yeah.
Well, we're going to look at some pretty captivating incidents to see how this unfolds. The troll in the Sorcerer's Stone, that perplexing timetable in Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, yeah.
The tense events around Buckbeak, the battle at the Department of Mysteries, and even touch upon the Horcrux hunt in Half-Blood Prince.
Whoa.
Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
I think you'll find that Hermione's evolution throughout these events really challenges those initial assumptions.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Think back to those early chapters in the Sorcerer's Stone. How is Hermione initially perceived, especially by Ron?
Well, you immediately see a clash between Ron's somewhat laid-back approach to magic and then Hermione's strict adherence to the rules and textbook knowledge. And if you remember how exasperated Ron gets when she corrects his spells, it's almost as if he sees her knowledge as a threat.
Yeah. It's so relatable, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That adolescent struggle to fit in, those social dynamics where intelligence can be sometimes perceived as, well, not cool.
There's a brilliant line that captures this perfectly. Ron actually snaps at her. He says, "I know, don't nag."
Yeah.
And it just perfectly sums up that dynamic. He feels like she's showing him up, and so he reacts defensively.
Now, let's jump to that pivotal troll incident in Sorcerer's Stone. I mean, talk about a shift in perspective.
This is where those initial assumptions about Hermione, they really start to crumble because she's petrified, just like anyone would be facing a mountain troll. Yet she doesn't freeze. Instead, she uses her quick thinking and, yes, her knowledge of trolls to save herself and Ron.
It's almost poetic. That is Ron she ends up saving. The very person who moments before was annoyed by her nagging now owes his life to her quick thinking.
It certainly challenges the idea that she's just a bookworm, doesn't it? Suddenly we see her bravery and her practical application of knowledge in a life-or-death situation.
And you can't help but wonder if Ron hadn't been so dismissive of Hermione's warnings earlier, maybe they wouldn't have ended up trapped with the troll in the first place. But, wouldn't be a very good story without a little near-death experience.
Perhaps not. But speaking of perspective, there's another detail in this scene that I find intriguing. Dumbledore's absence. He's conspicuously missing from the Quidditch match, and it's immediately after this that the troll incident occurs.
Ooh, that is interesting. It adds another layer of vulnerability to the situation, doesn't it? As if Dumbledore's presence, his watchful eye, is somehow a safeguard against these kinds of threats.
It certainly makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and it makes Hermione's actions all the more impressive. She steps up in this moment of crisis and demonstrates a level of courage that goes beyond simply knowing the right spell.
All right, let's fast forward a bit to Prisoner of Azkaban. Remember that whole curious business with Hermione's timetable? It seems impossible with her attending multiple classes simultaneously.
It's one of those tantalizing mysteries that Rowling never fully explains, but it hints at these hidden depths to Hermione's abilities. Something beyond even her impressive intellect.
It definitely piques your curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Is she bending time? Did she strike some deal with the Weasley twins for a magical time turner? The story never quite tells us, and I think that's part of the allure. It adds to the mystique surrounding her character.
It's as if she's operating on a level that we don't fully comprehend, and in a way that reinforces the idea that she might be underestimated. We can see her intelligence, but we can't quite grasp the full extent of her capabilities.
All right, so we've seen Hermione save the day with her knowledge, exhibit some mysterious time-bending abilities, but Prisoner of Azkaban also showcases another aspect of her character: fierce loyalty. Think about how she defends Hagrid and Buckbeak, even when it's deeply unpopular.
She puts herself at odds with authority figures, even risks expulsion, all for the sake of what she believes is right. That takes incredible courage.
Yeah, she doesn't just follow rules blindly. She questions them, challenges them, and breaks them when necessary. It's this moral compass that really sets her apart.
And it's not just about defending Hagrid and Buckbeak on an intellectual level. She becomes emotionally invested in their plight. We see her crying, expressing anger and frustration. It shows a depth of empathy that perhaps wasn't as evident in the earlier books.
It's a side of her that I think a lot of people, even those who might initially view her as a know-it-all, can connect with. That sense of injustice, that willingness to fight for what's right even when it's hard.
It's definitely a far cry from the image of a girl who simply likes to correct people's grammar and pronunciation. We see a depth of character that transcends simple intelligence.
Speaking of seeing Hermione in a new light, let's jump ahead to Order of the Phoenix and that truly epic battle at the Department of Mysteries. This is where any lingering underestimation of Hermione's abilities really gets shattered.
It's no longer just about quick thinking or clever deductions. This is a full-blown, magical combat situation, and Hermione is right there in the thick of it, holding her own against trained Death Eaters.
Remember, these are adults who've dedicated themselves to dark magic. And she's not just surviving. She's actively fighting back, protecting her friends, and demonstrating a level of competence with spells that's frankly astonishing.
It's a powerful moment for Hermione's character. We see her courage and her combat skills on full display. It's a far cry from the image of the shy, bookish girl we met in the first book.
She's a warrior in this scene, a true Gryffindor. And I think what makes it even more powerful is that she's not just fighting blindly. She's strategic, she's resourceful, and she's utterly fearless.
And let's not forget the emotional weight of this scene. Neville's injury. It's a stark reminder of the very real danger they're facing. It makes Hermione's bravery even more impactful because we see the potential consequences of their actions.
It's a reminder that she's not just throwing spells around for fun. She's risking her life to protect her friends and to fight against a truly evil force.
This scene is pivotal in challenging any remaining doubts about Hermione's courage. It forces us as readers to acknowledge that we may have underestimated her.
It's a great place to pause and reflect, don't you think?
Yeah.
We've seen Hermione evolve from a somewhat annoying know-it-all to a quick-thinking hero, a fierce defender of justice, and a formidable warrior. And all of this while still being incredibly intelligent and resourceful. Seems those early perceptions were pretty far off the mark.
We've only scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to explore, especially as we delve into those later books where Hermione's role becomes even more crucial.
So stick with us for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll examine how those perceptions continue to evolve, especially as she faces even greater challenges and dangers. Welcome back to our deep dive into the character of Hermione Granger. Last time we were exploring how those early perceptions of her as a know-it-all often masked her incredible bravery. We saw her quick thinking during the troll incident, her fierce loyalty in Prisoner of Azkaban, and her absolute badassery in that Department of Mysteries battle. But there's so much more to unpack, isn't there?
Absolutely. What's particularly interesting as we move into the later books is how Hermione's emotional depth and her crucial role in the fight against Voldemort become even more apparent.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in Hermione's intelligence and her problem-solving abilities, but we can't forget that she's also a deeply caring and compassionate person.
Yeah.
This is something that often gets overlooked, wouldn't you say?
I think you're right. It's easy to focus on the intellectual side of her character, but she's also fiercely loyal to her friends and possesses this strong sense of justice. This comes through in so many ways, particularly in her relationship with Ron.
Oh, their relationship is a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you're onto something. Remember that scene in Prisoner of Azkaban when Ron accuses her of not caring about Scabbers? Her reaction is so raw and emotional. It shows just how deeply she feels things.
That's such a great example, and it highlights the complexity of their relationship, too. You know, they have this constant back and forth, this bickering dynamic.
Yeah.
But it's clear that underneath it all, there's this deep bond of friendship and affection.
It's almost like watching siblings, isn't it?
Yeah.
They push each other's buttons, they challenge each other, but at the end of the day, they're always there for each other.
Think about Goblet of Fire, when Ron is consumed by jealousy, both of Harry's fame and Hermione's date with Victor Crumb. He withdraws from the friendship, and while Hermione is understandably hurt and frustrated, she doesn't abandon him. She tries to understand his perspective and ultimately helps him come around.
It speaks volumes about her character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
She could easily write Ron off as being immature or insensitive, but she chooses to be patient and understanding.
It's a reminder that even the most intelligent, capable individuals have their vulnerabilities, and that those vulnerabilities are often tied to the people we care about most.
Speaking of Goblet of Fire, who could forget Hermione's transformation at the Yule Ball?
Oh, yeah.
She goes from, bookworm to belle of the ball, proving that she's not just a brain, but a young woman with feelings and insecurities, just like anyone else.
And it's interesting how her date with Victor Crumb further fuels Ron's jealousy.
Right.
It almost suggests that he's been harboring these deeper feelings for Hermione all along, but hasn't quite realized them yet.
Their relationship is definitely a slow burn. But the tension and the underlying affection are there from the start. It's a classic example of opposites attracting, and it adds this whole other layer of intrigue to the story.
It's a reminder that even the brightest minds have hearts. And sometimes those hearts lead to complicated, messy, and ultimately very human relationships. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about Hermione's bravery in the face of danger, but there's another aspect to her courage that I think is equally important. Her willingness to stand up for what she believes in, even when it's unpopular.
Oh, absolutely. Think about SPEW, her Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a Hermione thing to do, to see the inherent worth of these creatures that most wizards take for granted, and to dedicate herself to improving their lives.
And she doesn't back down even when she's mocked or dismissed. She's persistent, she's passionate, and ultimately she does make a difference, even if it's small and incremental.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have a voice, and that we can use that voice to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Even if it seems like a lost cause, even if it's just one voice in a crowd, it can spark change.
And sometimes that one voice can inspire others to join the chorus. Think about how Hermione's activism ultimately influences Ron and Harry. They may not be as vocal or as passionate, but they come to understand her perspective and ultimately support her efforts.
It's like a ripple effect.
Right.
One person's actions can have a wider impact than we realize. And it all starts with that courage to speak up, to challenge the status quo, to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. No, we've talked about Hermione's bravery, her empathy, her sense of justice, but let's not forget about her incredible intelligence. It's not just about knowing facts and spells. It's about how she uses that knowledge, how she turns it into a weapon against evil.
That's a really important point. In Chamber of Secrets, she figures out that the monster is a basilisk by doing research in the library. She's literally using her book smarts to solve a life or death mystery.
She's not just a passive learner. She's an active problem solver. And this becomes even more evident in the later books, especially during the Horcrux hunt in Deathly Hallows. Her meticulous planning, her research, her ability to anticipate problems and come up with solutions are absolutely crucial to their survival.
She's the one who packs their bags, researches safe houses, comes up with escape plans. She's the glue that holds everything together.
Without Hermione, Ron and Harry would probably have given up or worse, gotten themselves killed.
Oh, yeah.
She's the strategist, the voice of reason, the one who keeps them moving forward, even when all seems lost.
Think about when Ron is struggling with the lock at Horcrux and wants to quit. It's Hermione who reminds him of their purpose, who helps him see the bigger picture.
She's the anchor, the one who keeps them grounded in their mission, even when their emotions are threatening to overwhelm them. And it's not just about emotional support. She's incredibly resourceful. Remember how she figures out how to destroy the Horcruxes, how she uses her knowledge of ancient magic to their advantage?
She's constantly learning, adapting, and applying her knowledge to overcome these seemingly insurmountable obstacles. There's this beautiful parallel between Hermione's love of books and her ability to apply that knowledge in real-life situations.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? Knowledge is power, but only if you know how to use it. And Hermione is a master at wielding knowledge as a weapon against evil.
And she does it all while staying true to herself, her values, her sense of right and wrong. She never compromises her integrity.
So to answer the question we posed at the start of this deep dive, is Hermione underestimated? I think we can safely say that yes, she is. Especially early on, people focused on the know-it-all label, missing the depth of her character, her incredible bravery, her loyalty, her unwavering commitment to justice.
She challenges our expectations. She defies easy categorization. She shows us that intelligence isn't just about books and facts. It's about how you apply that knowledge, how you use it to make a difference in the world.
All right, so stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll examine how Hermione's character continues to evolve as she faces even greater challenges and dangers in the final books. Welcome back. It's the final part of our deep dive into the brilliant and brave Hermione Granger. We've come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah.
From those early know-it-all days to realizing she's so much more than just a bookworm.
Right.
She's a loyal friend, a fierce advocate for what's right, and a strategic powerhouse in the fight against Voldemort.
It's fascinating to see how those early perceptions continue to be challenged, especially in the final 2 books. As the stakes get higher and the danger intensifies, Hermione's true character really shines.
Exactly. Think about Order of the Phoenix. Voldemort is back, the Ministry of Magic is in denial, and it's essentially up to a bunch of teenagers to prepare for a war. It's a pretty bleak situation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's here that Hermione's leadership skills really come to the forefront. She takes the initiative to form Dumbledore's army, recognizing that they can't rely on the adults to protect them. She understands the need for action, for preparedness.
And she doesn't just say, let's learn some cool spells.
Right.
It's about instilling confidence, fostering teamwork, reminding everyone that they have the power to fight back, even against, like, overwhelming odds.
It's a testament to her maturity and her understanding of what's truly at stake. Remember, she's only 15 at this point, yet she displays a level of responsibility and strategic thinking that's far beyond her years.
It's inspiring, isn't it? She's not just reacting to the situation, she's actively shaping it, taking control and empowering others to do the same. And of course, she's right there on the front lines, facing down those Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries, showing that she's not just a leader, but a fighter.
This battle marks a turning point, not just for Hermione, but for the entire series. It's the moment when childhood ends and the fight against Voldemort becomes a brutal reality.
It's a loss of innocence, a confrontation with true evil. And it's in this crucible that Hermione's character is truly tested and ultimately forged into something even stronger.
And speaking of trials by fire, let's talk about the Horcrux hunt in Deathly Hallows. It's essentially a nomadic mission, fraught with danger and uncertainty, where survival depends on resourcefulness, resilience, and an unwavering belief in their cause.
Hermione really steps up here, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah.
She's not just the brains of the operation. She becomes the heart and soul of their little trio.
She's the glue that holds everything together, and I mean that literally and figuratively. Remember, she packs everything they need, the tent, the books, the potions, even the endless supply of snacks. It's like she single-handedly prepared for every possible scenario.
It's Hermione at her most organized and prepared.
Right.
The ultimate Girl Scout, ready for anything.
Yeah.
But it's more than just the practicalities. She's the emotional anchor for Ron and Harry.
Yeah.
Keeping them focused, reminding them why they're fighting, helping them process their grief and their anger.
Think about it. They're teenagers, on the run, hunted by Voldemort's followers, carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's a pressure cooker situation. And without Hermione's steadiness, her ability to provide both practical and emotional support, I doubt they would have made it.
She's the one that keeps them from falling apart, from losing sight of their mission, even when it seems like everything is falling apart around them. And let's not forget how she figures out the Horcrux riddle, how she uses her knowledge of ancient magic to their advantage. She's constantly problem-solving, constantly finding ways to move forward, even when it seems like there's no way out.
There's this beautiful symmetry there, isn't there? This love of learning that sometimes seemed like a quirk, like something that made her stand apart, becomes the very thing that saves them.
It's a reminder that knowledge is power, but only if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
And Hermione embodies that idea perfectly.
And she does all of this while remaining true to herself, her values, her sense of right and wrong. She never wavers in her commitment to doing what's good, even in the darkest of times.
So to circle back to that initial question that you posed, is Hermione underestimated? I think we can safely say that yes, she is. Especially early on, people focused on the know-it-all label, missing the depth of her character, her incredible bravery, her loyalty, her unwavering commitment to justice.
She challenges our expectations. She defies easy categorization. She shows us that intelligence isn't just about books and facts. It's about how you apply that knowledge, how you use it to make a difference in the world.
And she reminds us that true strength isn't just about physical power or magical abilities. It's about heart, it's about integrity, it's about the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, even when you're facing these seemingly insurmountable odds, you can make a difference.
What a powerful legacy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes Hermione Granger such an enduring and inspiring character. She shows us that we all have the potential to be heroes, to fight for what's right, to use our knowledge and our voices to make the world a better place.
That's a pretty amazing takeaway from a deep dive into a fictional character, wouldn't you say?
You bet. And on that note, I think it's time we wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Hermione Granger. And until next time, keep those wands at the ready, keep exploring, and keep fighting for what you believe in.